There are 4 things that I've done in the last few weeks that are actually pretty simple, that have made me much happier and feel much more fulfilled. And that's what I'm going to share with you today, because if you are not feeling happy and fulfilled with what you're doing right now, these 4 easy things might make a big difference for you. Right now, there's a big issue when it comes to being online, in that we are just constantly fed information. And a lot of the time, unfortunately, a lot of that information is actually negative, whether it's on Reddit or the news websites or even on your Twitter feed. Unfortunately, a lot of what we get shown every day is just negative. And I'm not one to say it's like the plan of a matrix or someone trying to send us messages and try to change what we think. In my view, it's just that negative things get more eyeballs than positive things. And that's just how we work as people, because we're attracted to negative things. And news websites, Reddit, they're all just websites. The problem is, it makes us feel like the world is really not a great place, unfortunately. Because if you're fed negativity constantly, you start to feel like everything in the world is bad, versus there's a ton of amazing things happening out there. And someone I know very closely, they actually describe this as doom scrolling, when you read one negative thing and then that leads you to another negative thing and another negative thing, and your brain just starts to think that everything is negative, and it just makes you feel pretty bad. So what I've done in the last couple of weeks is I've become a lot more strict in what you would call like your internet diet. I've made sure to remove Reddit from my phone, apps from my phone, don't read any news. I really don't read much on Twitter unless I go on to actually just post something. I've really tried to cut down on even my YouTube watching and stuff. And overall, for me, it could be different for you. It's just made me a lot happier, just really controlling what comes into my brain and my body. And I don't read anything really. I don't even read the positive stuff. I'm just basically living life out in the real world more than being online. So what I really recommend for you to try do is to use plugins that allow you to block websites. I use one on Chrome called Block Sites, literally. And I found it really helpful to just stop me in the tracks before I actually even go start looking at some of these information sources or things that I know aren't going to make me feel that good, for example. I had a realization as well, in that I read books back to back, I'm constantly listening to podcasts back to back, I'm constantly watching series back to back. I'm always like trying to learn something, I'm always trying to do something to keep myself entertained, essentially. And I realized that I've basically trained my brain to be always stimulated. Like, I'm not used to just like silence and just chilling and just doing nothing really. But that's what I realized is so important, is you actually need to give your brain time and space to just kind of like relax and let it kind of do its thing of thinking how different things fit together, and also just be more present. I realized that when I stopped listening to so many podcasts, stopped reading so many books. I have another video about book reading, when you should rather just read the same books over and over if you want to read to learn. And once I started cutting out a lot of this noise, you could literally call it noise, and that's even just listening to music all the time, I realized I just became a lot more present and just a lot more happy. I just felt like I'm actually there. I felt like more chilled and more relaxed. So that's something I highly recommend for you to try. Is if you are someone right now who is pretty much always listening to music, you're always reading something, you're always watching series back to back, you're always reading, always like you feel like you need to do something, because that's often how you've trained your brain to be these days, is just take a break. I don't want to call it like a dopamine detox or something like that. It's like, make it actually a habit to use some of these blockers that stop you in your tracks before you start listening to these things or watching these things, and just see how much time you can get back by not doing those things and just enjoying the silence. Like, give your brain time to get used to not always being entertained. And I found for me that just made me much happier in the last few weeks. Adding onto that, I obviously have subscriptions to Netflix, Spotify. I don't think I ever had YouTube premium subscriptions, but I have all these different subscriptions. And in the last few weeks, as part of this, I actually just went and canceled all of them. And yeah, it's nice to obviously save a little bit of cash, but that wasn't the biggest benefit. The biggest benefit, again, it comes back to the fact that this is just more for you to cling onto and get yourself binge watching and binge listening and binge whatever. And I found that by canceling these subscriptions, it just stops me from even starting the process. I find that if you have these things available to you, you use them. If you know you have that Netflix subscription and you're paying for it, for example, you're going to use it because you're like, I don't want to waste it. I'm paying, I don't know, $5 or $10 for it. I need to use it. And then next month rolls over and the same thing happens. I found that by canceling these things, it stopped me just in the tracks. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't even have that option anymore. I need to either find something else to do or I just chill. I just enjoy, get used to the silence. And that's not to say I'm not going to come back to using these. I still find that I slip up sometimes and I'll reinstall one of the apps and like turn the subscription on for like a few weeks. Obviously, it's kind of stupid when you think about it to go install it again, resubscribe, and then cancel again. But I'm still saving so much time, and I'm at least starting to give myself that space and that silence that I can start to get in the habit of actually let my brain do its thing and not always just being entertained with all these easy options. Obviously, I also talk a lot about business because my channel is obviously a lot about automating business operations. And I want to ask you a question in that, how productive actually are you each day? Do you know how much productive time you're actually spending, whether you do it for your own business or you are doing it as a freelancer or you are working in a job? How productive actually are you? Because I know for me, when I started tracking my time and actually having better to-do list management, I realized I wasn't doing as much productive time as I realized each day. And this probably explained why a lot of my days were ending super late, because by not getting enough done, I felt like I needed to keep working until I hit this imaginary marker of, I've done enough. So what I've really done in the last few weeks, and again, this might be different for you, but it's helped me a ton by being much better with my project and to-do list management. So I set myself up on ClickUp. I have no affiliate to it. I just really like it and I've found it really easy to get started. And I've been able to set up a to-do list, and then also I can track my time, whether it's for clients or for myself, and I can actually see how much work I'm getting done each day. And I can promise you, if you do this just for a couple of days and then you realize, oh wow, I only did maybe 1 hour or 90 minutes or 2 hours of actual productive work, you're gonna feel a little bit bad. I mean, it made me feel a little bit bad when I realized how unproductive I was being with my time. But by knowing that you are being unproductive and also feeling kind of bad about it, that is the first steps to fixing it. What I found is by having this to-do list each day and then also tracking my time, it also turns it into a little bit of like a game, you could say, because by the end of the day, I could be like, oh wow, I did 30 more minutes or 60 more minutes of productive focused work than I did yesterday. And that feels good. That's achievement, that's growth. And also by having that to-do list, I'm sure you've seen this in many different videos, is you can go set up an actual list of what you want to get done that day. And you can make it realistic. And even if you get just 3 or 4 significantly big things done in a day, it's like you can finish that day at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. and you're like, I actually got important things done today. And you're not kind of in that unknown space of, did I do enough? Or I feel like I need to keep working, I haven't done enough. How many hours have I actually worked today that was productive? And I find that this combination of actually tracking your time, but also having this list of things to do each day that I know I need to get done, it's made me feel a lot more fulfilled and feel like I've got a lot more done each day. And I can kind of let my brain just unwind, because my brain is like, okay, we've done enough. We don't have to keep thinking about things. We can wait until tomorrow and we can do it all again. I hope you found those 4 things really helpful. For me, these have just worked really well for me in the last couple of weeks. So I highly recommend that you give them a try. A lot of this just comes down to experimentation. What works for one person isn't gonna work for another person. So take someone's ideas, give them a try. Like, hopefully some of my suggestions were helpful today, and then try them and see if it helps you. And if not, maybe it just wasn't the system or the approach for you, but at least you've tried something. And if it worked for you, you can maybe improve on it, tweak on it, and then share what you found. Or if it didn't work for you, you go find something else and you try that, see if it works better for you. If you want to be really productive with your time when it comes to reading, especially if you're learning for business or personal growth, then I want you to go check out this other vid that I recorded not too long ago that's really going to point out some big mistakes you're making when it comes to reading that's also impacting your productivity and your growth.